to go in the next 6 to 7 minutes. I have another committee. But really, thank you very, very much in relation to your statements today. It's very useful. I just have a number of questions, and just in relation to, obviously in the last, nearly 18 months to 2 years, there's been 100,000 people have come to Ireland. Very, very welcome. Obviously, have come from pretty terrible, traumatic situations. But in relation to those that have come to Ireland fleeing war and persecution, what services are there in reality for people that have come from, as I said, very traumatic experiences when they come to Ireland, for instance?
I suppose the same services that are there for the general population are afforded to IP applicants. Unfortunately, for people that are fleeing war and persecution, they have other ancillary layers of need that come along with that. So it's probably more difficult for them. There are a number of voluntary organisations like Spirazi who do great work, but again,
what's the name of that?
Spirazi. They work with victims of kidnapping and torture.
Okay.
But again, it's a resource and staffing issue.
Okay.
The waiting times are quite long. So yeah, in short, that they're the same.
Okay.
I can add, because you know, we've had, my name is Dr. Salome Mbugwa from Akidwa, but we've had a lot of people coming in, like you have said. Most of them are in emergency accommodation centers when we talk about international protection applicant. And although they are provided with the housing, they are provided with food, you know, from our research in Akidwa, it shows that there's that feeling of powerlessness, you know, because of lack of urgency. And this is when you are put in a situation where you don't know what will happen tomorrow. Some of them, although they came 18 months ago, they are still there. Sometimes they are delayed in getting maybe medical cards and other things. So what we have seen happening, one of the good example is, for example, a project that is going on in City West, where most of them are. And this is the psychosocial support that is so much needed to be able to support people who have come from conflict, who have come from war-torn countries, with this kind of psychosocial support, which would be actually the very first maybe support that is so much needed for them to be able to explore what has happened before even they left their country, when they were on transit to Ireland, and now when they're in Ireland. So their support, you can't say that they're not support there. But then there's that feeling of powerlessness, you know, for most of the women, because my organization deal with women, for women who would stay in these accommodation centers, sometimes without a medical card for 3 months, for 4 months, and also not knowing what is going to happen next. Also, my colleague mentioned about vulnerability assessment. Some of them would have mental health needs, but the vulnerability assessment, when they fill in the forms, then they take so long before, or they're not even called to be assessed or to be checked on how they can be supported and helped.
I'll just come, I'll just come to Amelia first, and then I'll come to you, Pat.
I think one of the good practice examples is that people who are coming here through seeking international protection or temporary protection, they, at least in the area where we work, I work at Corja, and we collaborate with the HSC on health assessment and health screening of refugees. So undergoing these assessments, at least it provides a way of identifying people who may need additional support and linking them with supports. There is a need for more in-depth psychological distress assessment, and that's being piloted, I think, actually through the City West. But nonetheless, even with this quite, structured system, people fall through the gaps, because mental health is, a specific area of health when people need to have willingness and readiness to engage with the supports. Further, for the Ukrainian refugees in particular, the Ukrainian Society Forum is collaborating. Ukrainian Society Forum members are collaborating, and we have mental health subcommittee. So therefore, actually now we have put together a list of services that were specifically set up to support mental health needs of Ukrainian refugees. The issue is culture, the issue is language, the issue is accreditation of people. And that's only when we talk about specific and tailored psychological or mental health supports. Then we have, in terms of accessing to mainstream services, the bureaucracy, the forms, the delays, that is something that puts people off. Some also prefer to seek support from a more, what they see as a more culturally appropriate way. So, for instance, back in Ukraine as well, especially if there are barriers that they face here. And thirdly, what my colleagues already mentioned, the community development approaches. Mental health is not only being resolved on the mental health care level. The emotional support provided in the community, providing safe spaces, providing opportunities to interact with colleagues, neighbours, with other refugees, resolving practical matters. This is also very important determinants of building resilience, that it's interpersonal and intrapersonal. And I think I wanted to emphasise that we need to look at the gaps at the services and provide targeted solutions, and we need to emphasise the person-centred care that's underpinned by social determinants of health.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and it's a question, if you ask service providers what services are out there, that they really have to think about it. And I would be worried and concerned from anyone coming abroad from what you described to Ireland to access mental health supports and services, because in our community in particular, what we're facing, what we see is access. It's just access to these services is absolutely a barrier. We identify people that are at risk, and you go to signpost them, and again, without the ethnic identifier, we can't see where they're going, what treatment they're getting, what are the outcomes. What tends to happen on the ground in reality, these people come to the organisations for support, and it can't be just left to the organisations. I am an expert when it comes to being a traveller. I know my community, I have access to my community. I'm not a mental health expert. I can't refer, because you need a referral to get into these. We're seeing issues even accessing a GP. This was before COVID, during COVID, and it's still happening afterwards. So there's a broad issue there regarding access. We identify the people, but it's getting the access. And again, what I would say is that there is a lot of organisations that are saying, you're the experts when it comes to travellers, you're the experts when it comes to a particular group. And we need that whole approach where the services have the expertise medically wise. And that I'd be concerned, TD, people coming in looking for supports, because there's already, and we talk about waiting lists, and that applies to everyone. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, for travellers is they're going to A&E, emergency department, 14, 15 hours, an outpatient referral for 5 or 6 months. It's just not humane. It's the reality we're living in, unfortunately.
And just another question, or kind of an observation. I think a very important part in relation to all our kind of well-being is integration. You know, people that have come to Ireland that, you know, they probably thought they were probably never even heard of Ireland in some ways, and obviously they want to integrate. And Irish people are very welcoming, and I think that's really important that people integrate as much as possible and are welcomed. And I think that has happened generally in Ireland. There has been a number of incidents which are pretty grotesque in relation to protesting outside somebody's kind of where they're staying, but largely that has. Most people completely object to that, but I think it's important that there is integration, and communities have welcomed migrants and refugees into Ireland largely, and it's generally worked. So I think we should kind of work together where possible and welcome people where they've come from pretty traumatic situations. I'm sorry, you have to go.
TD, I know you have to go. Can I just quickly, we had this conversation only this morning, the word integrated, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I would be more, TD, going towards the word inclusion,
Yeah,
to be
sorry.
included. No, I get what you're saying in the
Yeah.
context. I'm a student in Maynooth University, and I remember going there. I'm in my final year, please God now. I had a head of curls when I started it. It feels like that. But I felt included. I felt, TD, that I was Patrick Riley, I was a traveller, I'm a student, and I think that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
This integrating, it can mean so much things.
I'm slightly clumsy with my words.
No,
there, yeah.
I get
do
the
agree.
context.
I do
but
agree with
yeah,
you. It's more, it's kind of, I agree with you, yeah. I should have used a more better language than that.
yeah.
But it's also actually to agree what you have said. You know, we saw on the 18th of March how many Irish people came to support, even people who have been attacked at that time. Because when people feel like they're not wanted or they're isolated, it also triggers to their mental health. But the good people who come out to support and be there, you know, for migrant and for other groups that are, you know, marginalized is very, very important. And that's what you should encourage in a society where it has changed quite significantly. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Unfortunately, I have to go. Unfortunately.